Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Next Team Partners LinkedIn Live. I'm Andy Dunn, Teams Managing Director, and really lucky to be joined by Julie Saul and Tom Birkinshaw from Prominence. Good afternoon, you two. How you doing?
All good, all good.
Very good. We were talking about this in the green room beforehand. Before we start, and I want some predictions of this in the chat as well. What is everyone's prediction for England-Argentina this evening?
Start with yours.
7-1. England are going to win 7-1 tonight. And if it doesn't happen, don't come for me on LinkedIn because I'm going to go on every week.
They will.
My prediction. There's going to be a shot this evening.
2-1. Stay safe.
I'm going to go in the middle then. 3-2.
Well, there's three of us all confident of a win tonight. That's amazing. Right, let's get on to the subject because this, I recorded a video and put it out on social media earlier today, and I did another one to the members last week. But this is a topic that I hold really close to my heart. The reason that we set this up and we had the original conversations with Prominence is I did a LinkedIn poll about a month ago now about what documents, one-pagers, case studies do recruitment businesses have to hand that they use for clients, candidates. And one of the big things was that most recruitment businesses didn't have a full repertoire of these docs. They had a couple of clients, a couple of them had one or two candidates and clients, and then some of them actually voted on this poll saying they had none for candidates whatsoever. So we jumped on a call with Julie and Tom. We had a good chat about what recruitment agencies should really be thinking about now, how they prove their value in a world where we're being flooded by AI marketing and outreach, but how you really prove to the world what you're all about. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Tom and Julie. Obviously, give a bit of an overview about yourselves and your background and the types of businesses that Prominence help. And we're really, really looking forward to this session. Thanks for doing it for us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, good for the slides whenever you're ready, and then we can go from there. Thank you. So yeah, like Andy said, we're talking about, the power of proof and how recruitment businesses win more clients. So I'm actually going to start off with a stat because I was over in Melbourne last month and I was talking to a large amount of people about this very topic. And it's a bit like fashion. It's in the last 10 years, this has come back around, and we'll talk about Google reviews and reviews in general. But a really interesting statistic that I put to the floor to our Australian clients, and we've got a business out there, is the UK recruitment market is valued around, it's 44 billion worth of revenue to the UK. There are around 33,000 recruitment companies with give or take 230,000 recruiters. In Australia, the equivalent is 22 billion pounds. So despite it being 10 times the size, it's half the value of the UK market. But interestingly, although it's only half of the value, there are only around or just over 8,000 recruitment companies. So for them, I'm not saying it's easy, but it is slightly easier to win work because it's less saturated. The problem that we all know in the UK, it is a really saturated market. Loose stats is like, 8,000, between 6,000 and 8,000 solo entrepreneurs start up every year. And obviously some drip off as well. So it is a tough market. It's got tougher and harder. We've seen the market over the last 4 or 5 years be very high in some areas and some sectors and some not so good. So how do you then stand out in that crowd? And the phrase is, how do you stand out in a crowded market? 10 years ago, Google reviews really started, or 10, 15 years ago, Google reviews were kind of the be all and the end all of how you stood out. Case studies were drifting around, recommendations were there, but it wasn't really a thing. That then drifted off because everybody jumped on the bandwagon of going, right, can all my mums, dads, friends, brothers, sisters all leave me a Google review? And all of a sudden everyone had 50 to 100 Google reviews and everyone was the same. So the value that Google was then putting on Google reviews very quickly diminished because everyone was kind of tricking the system. They still have a huge value. I think when everyone here will use this good example of when they go on holiday, they go to TripAdvisor or Google reviews and check out the hotel review. So they still have a place, but in the back end, in the technical end, they add a value into SEO. Jump forward in today's market, we are now taking into consideration LLMs. So LLMs are large language models. That includes Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, etc. And I'm sure there'll be many more in the near future. The things that people look for in today's market and in any sector around the world in a crowded market is trust signals. And this has been super topical over the last 18 months with the LLMs coming in. So when these LLMs, and you're putting a search query into, let's just use ChatGPT, for example, how does it know that it is going to recommend the best company and why? And it will look for Google reviews, Trustpilot reviews, Glassdoor reviews, reviews on your LinkedIn company page or your personal company page or your personal branding. And so we have seen a massive shift between the last 6 months and the last 18 months. We are doing a substantial amount of new websites because it's really important to make sure that you're leading the way and how you're showing people how you're different. So, bit of context, introductions and overview to the session. Appreciate I went on a bit of a tangent, but I'm going to introduce Julie, myself, and what we do and where we've come from and where we are today. Look at the current recruitment marketing strategies and the pressures agencies are facing, why traditional recruitment marketing is becoming less effective, saturated sectors in some verticals fighting to stand out, understanding why trust has become a major growth driver. So I'm Tom Berkershaw. My history actually started out in the property sector. I worked for a large company in London called Dexter's Group, and as of about 8-9 years ago, it sold for about £500 million. It started off when I was there with about 200 people, and we grew the business to about 50 brands. And it got bigger and bigger, and I think, believe it now, that they are larger than Foxtons, and they're one of the largest groups out there. And when you go and look at their Google reviews per office, they're on between 5 and 10,000 reviews. We drove trust signals really early on, and we were probably market leaders within that. I then, like everybody probably on this call, fell into recruitment. I then worked for an investment firm, and the largest company within that was a recruitment group, of which Julie led generic engineering and generic food and drink, which is one of the largest companies within the companies of generic brands in there. I was there for about 5-6 years. Julie went on to an exit with the Simon Holdings, and at that point in time, I then moved on to Recruitment Entrepreneur, which was an investment firm purely for recruitment companies that ideally wanted to launch their businesses and to scale them up and to exit. So our focus on that was again, going back to how you stood out in the crowd, how you attributed your marketing revenue and your marketing revenue engine to your day-to-day operations in your recruitment firm. It was super important on how we scale those businesses to make them more attractive at a point of exit. I then helped launch the Recruitment Entrepreneur International into the US and into Australia as well. I then had the opportunity, I was going back 3.5 years because it took about 16 months to buy Prominence, but I took over Prominence 2 years ago, believing that actually a large part of the value of businesses in the recruitment sector were attributing value in terms of their business at the point of sale was marketing. We were being questioned by private equity and venture capitalists about the value of marketing and what it brought to the table, how they stood out and what our methodology was, and create blueprints of how we scaled businesses from a marketing and operations point of view. So the trust deficit in recruitment, I think, I don't want to put it on a scale of unpopular people. I think parking attendants and estate agents are above recruiters. But I think when you're looking at the fees that recruiters charge, particularly when you're doing the mid to top marketing and exec search, you have to justify what you're doing. The service you provide has to be exceptional. We're not talking about small fees. So with the clients and candidates, they're a lot more skeptical than ever before. It's a harder market, and ghosting for clients and candidates actually is very common. So the ability to deliver high quality candidates is a daily battle. We've seen the candidate market change rapidly over the last 5 years, particularly in different verticals as well. If you've got a low trust brand, often experience creates longer sales cycles and low conversion rates, and they definitely fail to scale. I think the statistic is around 70% of recruitment agencies fail to grow above 10 heads. It's not just because of trust. There are a number of variations of why businesses really struggle to grow above 10 heads. And anyone who wants advice on that, Julie grew, I think, to about 30 heads or just over 30 heads in 20 years. Went through a couple of recessions and financial issues that the world had to throw at her at the time. And so There are obviously a number of reasons of why that happens, but ultimately building the foundations of a business, making sure that your best practices in play, looking at obviously your sales processes, your recruiter processes, how you incentivize people, but also from a marketing and operations point of view, what do you have in place? What's the tech stack that you've got, and how does that work? And how are you building trust within that right from the start? And I'll use Prominence as a case study for that. When I bought Prominence, it was a 100% reactive business. We just got referred business. There was no BD. We didn't go out and fight for business, purely because it's been around for 12 years and it was well known around the world. But it kind of failed to scale because there was no real structure into how we were doing that. There was no case studies. We were just telling people that we were quite good at what we did, and so did other people, which is fine. But again, it depends what you want. If you want a lifestyle business, then I would say stick to what you're doing. If you want to scale it organically, then you need to look at your foundations and look at your trust and marketing strategy. You've got to look at what trust actually means in the recruitment environment. You're going to need to look at your clients that you've worked with. I think it's a really good exercise, although a bit of a manual process, is look back from when you started and do an audit of all your client accounts. When we do our growth advisory stuff, we look at this as a starting point. Who's got the most value there? Who haven't you built with for a while? Who has built with you, and why are they billing with you? And the likelihood is, I can guarantee the people that you consistently build with, they've got that personal relationship, they trust the person. The likelihood is that person's been in your business for a long period of time, and they're working from a human to human point of view. So that trust is personal. So when you're trying to attract new clients, is then how do you start and create trust really early on? Example of how trust impacts growth, referrals, and retention. There are different life cycles of where your clients have come from, like I just mentioned, starting from new or being with you for a while, and then looking back on how you deliver better service, better case studies, which you can then talk to other people about, which creates more trust. It's 10 times more impactful me saying, we're the best company in the world, we're the best recruitment firm, an H1 header, so the main header on websites that always makes me laugh, and I'll just use the engineering sector because Julia's on the call, is we are the leading engineering recruitment company in the UK. It's such a non-statement, and apologies if there's anyone on this call, this live, that's got that. But when you look at that and you dig into that business, for example, and again, this isn't a real case study, is you go and then you find out that they've got 3 people in the business. Well, the likelihood is you probably aren't the leading engineering recruitment company. So that isn't a good way of how to do that.
And to your point there, Tom, on that, that's one of the things that, is really, really important, is to evidence how you've helped the businesses that you're working with grow and expand. And if you can bring that back into what you've done. So like, for instance, we had one client we worked with for I think it was about 14 years. And when we actually did some assessments on them, 80% of the people that worked there, we'd recruited through one route or another, whether it's somebody that taken on a contract basis, ultimately gone permanent, or permanent recruitment. Actually, if you're going to say you do something, evidence it. So ours was, we help our businesses grow through the people that we place. Then actually giving your evidence of how you've done that, and then bringing that to your marketing, rather than we are recruitment specialists, which of course everybody says.
Yeah. And that literally leads on nicely to a lot of recruiters say the same thing. I think, I think being in recruitment, you should be proud of what you've achieved at whatever size of your business is, and understand what you do and how you do that and the value that brings. And, not to get sentimental, but like, it is life-changing. You're creating life-changing careers for people potentially that do end up in businesses. And the knock-on effect of that is, they've grown into more senior roles, they've created families and houses. And so it is, it's really impactful with what recruiters do. I think for me, a kind of a personal pain point, which there's 2 ways of looking at it, is like people come to us and go, oh, we're not like any other recruitment company. We're not really a recruitment company. And it's like, I get what you're trying to say. You are a recruitment company because the fundamentals of what you are doing it, but how you are doing it and the value that you offer is not like other different recruitment companies in your sector, potentially. And that's what you have to dig into and experience, show them the experience and case studies of what you are doing, rather than saying, we're not a recruitment company, we want to do things differently, because you will massively miss out on business. So I think the mindset of this kind of, let's step away from pigeonholing ourselves because they go, we're just creating teams, it's not recruitment. You are still doing recruitment, the fundamentals exist. It's how you evidence that you can do in a different way, absolutely. So the foundations of a trust-driven strategy. If everyone was on this call was to start a new company today, define a clear niche and a market position. I think we all know that having being an expert in a vertical, in a niche, is 90% more successful. Not to say that generalists don't do well. Generalists you will find within that sub-brand and have specialists within the generalism. Don't brand yourselves as the leaders in, like I said before. There's other ways of doing it, and rather than generalist statements. Creating a value proposition that feels credible and authentic. I think when people start businesses, take over businesses, or scale their businesses, they lose this a little bit. And I get the day-to-day running of businesses. Everybody is time poor. And the amount of times we've sat and actually people have taken time out to work on their business and not in their business. The kind of light bulb moments between the senior leadership team is incredible to see. And it kind of gets people reinvigorated about why they're doing what they do, why they've been successful, and what does make them different, and how we translate that. Aligning brand messaging with consultancy behavior and delivery, that's absolutely key for growth. Sorry, Julie.
No, to that point, I think I've spent a lot of time since I've been with Prominence, ironically, which I never did when I was in recruitment, looking at other recruitment businesses and seeing which ones I'm drawn to. And for me, the ones I'm drawn to, the ones that get their messaging across about their passion, their purpose, how they're impacting the market, where they're really sort of becoming the expert within their sector, whether it is you're a generalist or not, but it's the passion, what they're offering to the people that work for them, what they're offering to the candidates on their journey, what they're offering to the clients on their journey with them. You feel the excitement in their brand. And if you look at your own brand and you can't feel that, then you need to do something different.
And I think aligning that on the next point is making sure, your marketing generally needs to be led from the top down. It's really difficult when you've got a leader, founder, or a champion in your business that's really driving it and it's not being supported by the rest of the business. You need to bring it into the boardroom. You need to explain why you're doing what you're doing. And it is a massive key for growth, because the people within your business are the ones that are out there fighting your corner of the coalface. So why not have them on board? When we've looked at businesses to acquire in recruitment, when I'm doing my due diligence, I look at their LinkedIn, I look at their website, I look at their staff, I look at their organizational structure, I look at all of their staff content, and to see how aligned it is. And if it is all aligned, my subconscious goes, these guys have got their stuff together. They're probably a good company to reach out to see if they want to merge, acquire, whatever it is. And so the value in that, if you're, I'm not saying anyone was looking for an exit, but if you're looking for an exit, the amount of due diligence that businesses do on your business before you even get to that point is phenomenal. And so it's something that I look for when I'm doing the same thing. Consistency builds confidence with both clients and candidates. If you're sporadic, doing different things, different branding, no consistent messaging, or you different week, different message, different vertical, it's really hard to understand what you're doing. People doom scroll quite quickly. You need to be consistent. If people following your page and your email marketing and your brand awareness and how you're talking to clients within your teams, yes, everyone's going to have a different personality and bring something new to the table, but it's really important that the core messaging is exactly the same. Build that marketing ecosystem around your EVP, your value proposition, and your trust and your case studies, and make sure everyone's bought in on that. So marketing that builds trust, what does that look like? You need content marketing that positions your business as the market authority. Recruitment is, people always back in the day was like, are you a B2B marketer? Are you a B2C marketer? And you kind of went down one or two ways. And I don't love the terminology, but actually everyone's a human to human marketer. And in recruitment, it is built on personal relationships. But just before that point, it is built on your brand awareness, how much you're getting out there, how much you're networking, how much you're in front of people. And so that content marketing that positions your business as a market authority, it takes time, but you've got to start somewhere and start doing it consistently. Using testimonials, case studies, and social proof effectively. People buy from people. What's the best ways to showcase yourself? So we worked with a client who had quite a simple website. We were going through the whole SEO, AEO, and GEO conversation and the content strategy. And we were rebuilding their website from scratch. And we looked at the basics of design. And so how that came across was kind of, the standard recruitment stuff. You need the keywords, you need the key pages, this, that, and the other. We ended up moving their case studies to front and center, because when we gave it to a team of 30 people of just testing it, from our internal team and external, going, how do you then stand out and get jobs from new clients uploaded passively? We were finding people were going to the case studies page. And so that then makes a massive difference on what separates you from anyone else and how people use your website. Your website should be there for a point of relevance on, you haven't spoken to these people at that point, so you want them to have 3 clicks in contact. And so they will do that once they believe you can fill the role that they want, and you need to evidence that you've got similar case studies of doing that. And that's the role of your website and the brand perception and creating trust. This then needs to be consistently across LinkedIn, email marketing and outreach. Like, as I said before, it's a whole strategy, this whole marketing ecosystem. It builds into your tech stack. It's such a good exercise to spend a few days to a week with your senior leadership team, understand what you want, how you're going to go to market, what that looks like currently, and just get everyone in a room and agree the next sort of 6 to 12 months that vertical suits this strategy, because every vertical is very different.
There's a question that's just come up in the chat, Tom. Do you want to cover that at the end? It's a chap called Tom Shorto. Hi, Tom. Just asking about what stage in the process do you suggest that we ask candidates and clients for testimonials?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'd kind of say instantly. If you think about your own experience in, let's just say, buying a car, buying a house, buying anything, and you've built that personal relationship with somebody, you kind of become friends with these people to some extent. And, you have if it's something like buying a house and it's built up over a period of time, within 48 hours and no longer, because if it goes 2-3 weeks later, as well, in recruitment, you're moving on to the next thing, and that person's moving on to the next thing. So strike while the iron's hot, straight away, build that, jump on a call with them, say, how did it go? How did you find anything? Would you do anything differently? Thanks for the feedback. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to drop a couple of links to you. I'd love it, because it really helps build what we're trying to achieve here. And they would be more than happy to do that. We've done it with Prominence and it works like a dream. I think the longer you leave it, it's not to say it can't happen. And I think it's well worth doing the exercise going back. But yeah, strike while the iron's hot.
And the other thing that I used to find with my consultants, that they come off the phone and they say, oh, Bob's just really happy. We've just placed him in this job. It's just changed his life. He can't believe it. And I'm like, and, did we get that from him in writing? So encourage your team to realise the importance of it. I even had at one point, and I've worked with some clients that I've done coaching with, where they've actually implemented it as part of incentives, KPIs, to get these testimonials in, because I think a lot of what we kind of do as recruitment consultants go, it's part of a job, it's what we do. But if we don't evidence that, how can other people know what it is that we do? And just when you pick up the phone, you do a call and you go, oh, this is what we do. They go, oh, really? And you can say, oh, well, I've placed this guy and this is what he said. But to actually have that as something that you can then send on to your client, they'll go, oh, my God, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it goes back onto point 2, where you're aligning your marketing and your sales activity in one joined up strategy. And I think if you spoke to any marketing person who does what we do, or any marketing agency, I think there's one thing we'd all agree and fight more for, is that aligning the marketing and sales activity is pivotal to the success of any business. And that's, going back to point 1 is, how trust can shorten sales cycles and improve conversions. It's that evidence-based, exactly what Julie's just said, and explaining to your sales team. We have this conversation a lot. It's like, we aren't sitting there as a marketing team going, we're going to take away commission from you guys if we attribute something to the website because somebody's come through there, because we've got great case studies on there. What we're going to do next year, if we had £1 million worth of marketing budget, we know after the attribution model where our trust has worked really well, we can then split that £1 million into the right areas that will drive more business for you. And that's where the marketing and sales activity really needs to be aligned, and that they understand that why they're pushing out the one pages, the documentation, the proof and evidence, because ultimately the sales cycle comes back to them. And do it early in the journey as well. And
marketing really works used correctly. I mean, I've been in business development my whole life. And I know how going into speaking with a client without evidence, without being able to prove that you can do what you can do, and having the relevant underpinning warmth to go in and open your doors is it's hard work. So use the information that you've got, use what you do well, and then people will start to go, oh, right, okay, they might not answer now, but they will answer in the future. So people want what other people have. It is, it's a human want and need. If they know another client has had that experience, they want that experience too.
100%. And, point 4, real world examples of trust-led marketing strategies that generate pipeline. I think and everyone knows how hard BD is, going back to that first point I made about there's 33,000+ recruitment companies. Sadly, we aren't unique, but that doesn't diminish how hard we work to get the business that we're doing to achieve like really positive results. And so going back to that pride aspect of like shout about what you're doing and get others to shout out about you as well. Because when you've got somebody who's focusing on BD, whether they're 180 or 360, and they're driving that business for you, they want a pack of information that they know, your business may have been around for 5 years. They want 5 years worth of evidence of why you've been around for 5 years. We were working with a client and we did a statistic. They were doing their 20th birthday. And it's something like under 20% of recruitment businesses last 20 years. So there's businesses, whether a year old, 5 years or 10 years, it's a tough market. It's a really tough industry to be in. So be proud about what you've done, document it, and make it easy for the people that are driving your business forward to give them every bit of support they can do to do that. There's two sides of it: is building your business up, website, LinkedIn content, email marketing, podcast, whatever that side is. And it's a bit like the quote, and I believe it's Richard Branson, when somebody said, he goes, what if I train my people and they leave? And he turned around and said, what if I train my people? What if I don't train my people and they stay? We talk about this a lot in recruitment. I'm not going to make a guess at the average recruitment consultant at any level of how long they're staying there, but sometimes it isn't a 5-year career for some people. So they go, well, if I'm going to promote them and get their brand up and they leave, they're going to move on to another company. Yeah, 100%. But what you need to be doing is building great content on your company page that's consistent, evidence-based, trust, case studies, testimonials, videos of people you've worked with where you've got those great relationships. Post that on your company page, get it out to your team, provide them with the content. And so when you're building them up with your content, not just their own content. So they may leave, that's part of the recruitment life cycle, unfortunately. But when they do leave, you've still got all that content in your library, in your repertoire, that when those new people come in and that, those wave of people are building your business, you've got the same repetition and consistency of messaging.
I think the biggest aha moment for me on that, Tom, as well, was looking back at having run my business. Had I realised I could have built marketing as a revenue generating engine in its own right, I would have been less worried about people when they left. I think I spent so much time investing in the people that work for me and then living in this kind of fear-based position of going, what if they leave? What if they leave? What if they leave? But actually, what if they stay? And what if then we've got this generating evidence come in from the marketing that's continually, it's there. It's not going to leave you, is it? It's going to stay with you. And it will continue generating that business in for new people as they come into the business, and it helps you grow.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the big guns of the world, when you look at Amazon and Meta and Apple, their brand hasn't diminished because, I think Meta was one of the recent ones that they laid off 3,000 people. Now their brand hasn't changed ultimately, and it's because their marketing strategies and sales strategy are being led by the business. And it's just having that, sure, different scale, but having that same mentality. And so just for the next kind of 5-10 minutes, I'm just going to skim through kind of a 90-day trust plan, a bit of a strategy. The team guys, Bella and Co, will ping this around afterwards. And again, it's kind of the basics that if you're going to take away anything from this, just sit down, spend half an hour a day over the next few weeks, month, and look at what you're doing, if you're ticking these off or not. And if you're not, what you can do in the short and medium term to kind of start doing bits to start improving it. Recruiters are extremely time poor, in my experience, more than many other sectors. So we're well aware of how long it takes to do this, and it isn't an overnight fix, and it is a long-term play. So yeah, the first kind of 30 days, define your niche and your ideal client profile clearly, your ICP. And I think, the focus is always on the client because we want new business. Don't detract from candidates, because your candidates may become your next clients. And we have seen massive amounts of evidence of this, where 2-3 years down the line, they've become heads of and decision makers. So, you've got to remember, I do believe that people underestimate the value of candidates and things get lost, but I appreciate candidate applications are through the roof and it's quite hard to do. But just always bear that in mind. Audit your current brand perception. Do this yourself. Get your mate to do it. Somebody who doesn't work in recruitment. Just get a third party and go, what do you think? Because we're all in our own business day to day. You think it's the best it can be. Fresh eyes, unbiased opinion. And we do a lot of audits for businesses this way, even before we're working with them for free, just as an idea of, like, actually, you look like this. We had a business that thought they were moving into the exec search, and they'd done a new website and brand, and they looked still like mid-market. And so it's very easy to justify it to yourself. So just have a third party person just look at it. Clarify your value proposition and point of difference. Everyone can probably sit here on the call and tell me your value proposition and point of difference, but the likelihood is it's not on your website. You're not putting out in your marketing. It's not in your strategy, but you could tell me. So just document it, put a strategy behind it. Align consultants' messaging with marketing messaging, as we talked about before. Get everyone on board. The main thing with that is explain to them why you're doing it and the value of what it will bring to the business and to them. Not in a patronizing way, but in the fact that everyone's out for themselves. They are there to make money for themselves. If you can demonstrate a strategy that you're going to help grow their career and grow their own little business, that's really important for them to get on board with what you're doing. Optimize your website credibility signals, case studies, testimonials, the team, results. Again, going back to the very start, LLMs, we put a poll out, although it was a snapshot of time. 60% of people now search through LLMs over just Google. Because of the industry I'm in, I do both. I do 3 because I love finding the different results and as to why. I think everyone knows about AI and the LLMs. There's going to be a hell of a lot more of them in the next 24 months. It's going to get easier to use. They're going to get better results. So make sure that you're ahead of game with that and rebuild your foundations of what it takes to come up on those. It's been a massive game changer over the last 6 months. We now get referred business from Claude and ChatGPT as much as we do direct from Google. Which, when it first started happening, I was like, yeah, amazing, that's cool. But actually, when you really think about tech and the world we're in, there wasn't a competitor to Google. Yahoo, Bing, sure, but it was, it was a verb. You Googled it, and so now it's, I don't know if you LLM'd it is quite as cool, but people are going to be doing that more and more. Clean up your LinkedIn profiles across leadership and consultants. Consistency is key. Start with the basics. Get your branding right. Get your verticals right. Make it obvious who does what, and give them the support and the library of evidence-based within those verticals. Identify your biggest trust gaps in your sales process, and I think that goes back to the second point of audit your current brand. It's when we do our growth advisory, this is like a big hole which Julie picks out, is looking at the sales process. I think Tom's question highlights that, is that when do we do it? It's like you need to have a best practice document that your senior leadership team can rehash out to your teams of when you do certain things. When do you ask for those reviews? Where do you put those reviews? How do you get them onto your website? Who's managing that? Once they're on your website, or do they go to a deck when you're doing a sales pitch? Like, what is that trust process and marketing process in your sales pitch? So those are kind of like the easy changes you can start to do. The next 30 to 60 is, once you've done all that, launch consistently thought leadership content on LinkedIn. That's not just saying we're the best in what we do in this vertical or we're leaders in. It's going, people want to know how you've done it, what the problem was, what you did to do it, and what the return on investment with the client was. That's real thought leadership in your vertical. Publish client success stories and proof-led content. Create educational content that solves audience problems. People are coming to recruitment companies because they have a problem that they can't fix. They have roles to place. They don't have access to the network that you guys do. So create content is like who you are, what network you have, how you solve problems, and what you are going to do for them, because they are going to pay you a chunk of money for that. You actually need to have to do a lot of pre-work to justify to them that you're the right person to take on that role. I'm quite an OCD person. I still write on a notebook, but build a content calendar focused on market expertise. Even if you're jotting it down, use AI to help with this. Give AI the problem, let it feed back to you, suggest, get it to review your website and tell it to come up with a content calendar of ideas. Yes, we're a marketing agency, we do all this, but we understand the value of getting thought leadership and content ideas and work from AI. So again, if you're a smaller business, then by all means, crack on with that. It's such a useful tool. Introduce consistent email marketing or nurture campaigns. It used to be about 6 or 7 touch points before a business would work with you, whether that's social media, email marketing, listening on a podcast. That's now going to about 9 because of the various touch points in tech that are out there, and there's so much more choice. So you do need to be front and center of it, and you do need to have a proper marketing strategy with an ecosystem of marketing tech that supports consistency. Improve consistency across brand outreach and website messaging. Start measuring engagement and audience responses. What you don't want as a founder or leader of a business is to sit there and be like, oh, I think it went really well this quarter or this month, and then next month or quarter go, oh, it wasn't as good, it's just gut feel. Evidence it, create documentations, create an attribution model that shows value in what you're doing, because it's not just about the gut feeling, which is fine, but it's about having the right time that you're spending in those right areas with the right messaging. So you're not wasting time, even if you feel like it's going well, and start to get a return on investment from that. And then start converting trust into pipeline. Create clearer calls to action across marketing channels. Align your marketing activity with your business development efforts. Again, I'll bang on with the point is whether you've got a BD person, whether it's a sales team, align that marketing activity with it and make sure that they are fully on board with it. Get them to sit next to your marketing team, get them to sit with your marketing agency. Introduce lead capture and conversion focused campaigns. The tech that we have access today and that you can source people 90% down to the individual, give or take, is amazing. So create those unique tracking codes, UTMs, on everything that you do. You can see where these people are coming from. You can see who clicked on it, particularly case studies, campaigns that we're doing for our other clients. Use social proof throughout the buyer journey. Build a follow-up process that nurtures trust over time. Again, don't be ashamed to ask for reviews, bang on about it. If they don't reply, keep going. The value of that is getting bigger and bigger with AI, and those trust signals that the LLMs and still Google and Bing and Yahoo are looking for is going to get stronger, that they want to find out what other people think of you, not just how well you can write good content on a website. Review your performance metrics tied into pipeline and revenue. Marketing, thankfully, sits at, I work with a lot of businesses at board level as an advisory position. And all we talk about is revenue performance. What are the metrics? Who's doing what? What's worked? Hasn't happened? And report back to the board on that and look at the revenue that's generated from it and talk about the next quarter and where that's going. Refine messaging based on market feedback and results. You're not always going to get it right. Be your own worst enemy. Challenge yourself. Change what you're doing. Just because you build a strategy today, the likelihood is tools, tech, people will change in 12 months. Don't be afraid to change things every 3 to 6 months if you feel like it's not working, or if it's evidence-based not working, put a pause to it, go in a different direction, look, A/B test things, always challenge your own strategy. So any other questions?
I know Andy was going to ask a question. I don't know whether is Andy going to jump back on to ask that question or
Bella, if she's around. I think it's got Andy's question. Andy's just jumping back in.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We got you back.
I've been sitting in the background. I've actually been writing down stuff on my notepad, which is not in the Jahisha pack of questions. First one I'm going to ask you about, I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but did you mention lead magnets on websites?
Loosely, yeah. Not directly, but yeah, informed.
Do you think that's a real missed opportunity for recruiters to, because I didn't even know what a lead magnet was when I was still running my recruitment business. So I was so naive. Team didn't do sessions like this back in the day. So talk to us a little bit about lead magnets, Tom and Julie. What sort of things could you have on your website to capture the information of people that are having a poke around and seeing what you're all about and deciding whether or not they're going to initiate a contact with you?
Yeah, and there's one of the things we've done, we've trialed, and I've worked with is, one thing, if you're working with, obviously, you're trying to BD companies, right? So most companies around the world have an allocate, if they've got a static office, have a registered IP address of where they're coming from. So you can work with tech firms that, let's just say team works at 1 Hanover Square, and you'll have your unique IP address. So when you come onto our website, it will say team, it won't tell you who was on the website, hit these pages and for this long. If you use tools, Lusher, Cognizant, Apollo, all these things, I can then go back, look and go, right, who's at team? Who are the decision makers? Great. There's a chap called Andy there, MD. I'm going to give him a call. It's a bit of it's still a cold lead, but it's still of a warmer lead. The problem with those I love them and hate them in the same sentence because they're really useful. Like, you'll never find out that Andy Dunn went onto my website because of GDPR rules and everything, but you can get a good idea of who that is. Now, you might have a team of 50 people, and it could have been the newest assistant you brought into the company that clicked on the website. And so when I've called you, it's the cold lead, and you'd be like, no, I don't know who you are because I haven't been on your website. But it massively helps knowing that, and because you've got a foot in the door, you know that somebody of interest, and it's normally a decision maker or in the top third of people who are looking on your website for a reason. So there is tools and tech to do that. I would take them with a pinch of salt. They're not overly expensive, but I have run 3 at the same time, and I've had different results from each one, which is hilarious. But again, these lead magnets, it's best to do them. They're inexpensive. It helps that process for sure.
We just had an IT drop-in session earlier today with Simon Tops, our divisional director, and he invited a head of talent acquisition. I'm not going to mention who it is or what company he worked for, but it's one that we'll all know on this call. And he said, like, my job as head of TA is to make myself look good, like, in the business. I need to do good things for the business, make myself look good. And he said the kind of things that he's interested in recruitment agencies approaching him with, or he wants to know about, is stuff like workforce and capacity planning, competitor hiring activity, talent mapping, EVP of them. He also wants to know what their brand's like in their business. So, like, these are like lead magnets, documents, branding stuff that you could put together, right, and share. And like, it's then evergreen documents. You can use those, rinse and repeat, with client upon client, prospect after prospect, and they'll always pay back. Like, it is, I suppose it is a bit of an effort putting them together.
It's a time investment, but to your point, like, don't overwhelm yourself in doing that. And actually kind of tenuously links onto Tom's question, what's the most worthwhile places for these documents? Do you put it on Google, LinkedIn, or your own website? Google, 100%, push Google reviews. Depending on how big your agency is, get people to do it at different times. Don't do it all at the same time because Google will see it as like a bit of a spam campaign. Stick as much as you can on your own website. If you don't have a case studies page or an evidence-based page, create one tomorrow. That is going to drive forward. And to your point, Andy, is the knock-on effect of that is spend a bit of time and money and effort into the documentation. Like Julie said, is if she can change one thing, it's actually, if you can create a marketing revenue engine and you've created all this document and library of collateral that sits there and you build up slowly, it's evergreen. Just because a person has placed with somebody else afterwards doesn't mean that case study that you did 3 years ago isn't now relevant. We work with businesses that come and go. The company that we work with for 3 or 4 years, that's still an extremely valid case study. Just because it might have been 6 years ago doesn't mean it's not relevant. So it's evergreen content, and the more you build that up, the bigger the value it is, for sure.
And it's kind of cementing, isn't it? The topic of this, the proof. It's like the power of proof, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember, Andy. I mean, we used to literally have the testimonials printed off on the letterheaded paper of who'd written it, going in with an actual folder in a visit and going, this is what we've done. And people forget that now because I think, it's on the website. So even if you were somebody that went out to visit lots of clients and you've got these evidence pieces of information, you drop them an email, you send them a link to something that's specific to them. That I know it sounds dead simple, but people forget to do this because they think, it's on my LinkedIn, it's on my website. You've got to go back to doing something that's different to what your competitors are doing. And as you say, building that, this is what you're going to get from us. You're not just going to get a candidate replaced, but we're going to come in and we're going to work with your client. We're going to I went in and I did a session with a client, and we sat there and we looked at their recruitment process, and we realised that in their recruitment process, that was the point where they were losing the candidates. So what we did was we implemented this change, and it's increased their placement, and not only their placements, but their retention ratio by 75%. Whatever it is, that is gold. That then shows you why you're different.
And it's also like, you know, everyone that's watching this, there's a load of recruiters watching this now. Think about the hardest job you've ever filled. You know, the hardest brief that you had. Sit down for 20 minutes, half an hour. Like if it was me now, I'd be using, I'd dump it onto a bit of paper. I'd try to make the writing legible, take a photo of it, run it through ChatGPT, and you're like, summarize this, turn this into a case study. I worked with I don't mind sharing it now because I'm not in recruitment anymore, but company was Rockwell Collins. So they're an aerospace company, and they had a vacancy for a GNSS system architect, global navigation satellite system architect. And they needed this person like yesterday, and they needed the person to be UK eyes only security cleared. That project took me like 4 months. There was only 20 people that had a security clearance at that level doing that job in the UK. And I mapped them all out. Like, why didn't I turn that project into like the best case study ever to then go out and win more retained work off the back of it? It's these kind of things, like having that to hand when you're pitching to a client, or if they've got that super niche role, that role that sounds similar to what you've done in the past. Like, it's just worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
And that leads on really nicely to Andy Hudson-Shaw's question. I've started up solo after 3.5 years working internal. I have recommendations, case studies, whilst internal. Is it okay, ethical to add these to my websites, even though they weren't through my own company as such? I think this is such a good question because, you know, going back to my point, people move companies. Going back to my point, you know, through the presentation, people work with people. Andy, my kind of answer to Andy would be, is how you phrase it. And what I would do if you're doing those responses is why people work with me, or how people have worked with me. And then you put those responses in, or those case studies in, why people have worked with me, those case studies. And then as you grow, because obviously now you're solo and you're growing, once you start building that through your own company, you just change the terminology. Do I think it's ethical? 100%. You're not lying. You haven't made it up. It's a factual thing that you've done. People will understand that people work from people in recruitment. So I think it's fair and reasonable, or beyond fair and reasonable, to do that. Just phrase it in why people work with me, not why people have worked with company name, because then it's misleading. I don't think it's unethical, misleading. So yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to do that. Just phrase it that way.
Yeah,
I suppose another good point, like, go back to them. Sorry, Julie, you go.
I'll follow on to that. No. It's literally about saying, you know, this is how I have impacted the company with the services that I've actually taken. I've delivered myself. You have delivered that, so it is your lived experience, and you can evidence it. So it's like, if you were evidencing something from that company that you weren't part of and you couldn't back up the activity, then no. But if you've done it, then it's yours. You own that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just looking at mine because I always ask my candidates to give me recommendations or testimonials on LinkedIn, and I've got a spreadsheet. So I've recruited 1,063 people in my life. I've got them all on one Excel spreadsheet, and I've only got 75 LinkedIn recommendations out of that, and I asked most of them to do it. So it is like, it does take time and effort and energy to do that, but it's worth it. I mean, before I knew of companies like Prominence out there, I used to just screenshot all of my testimonials on LinkedIn and put them onto a Word document and then turn it into a PDF and send that out to people as sort of as proof.
Yeah, it's fine, and it's finding the time to do that. And I think, like, again, it goes back to being that OCD, repetitive. It's such an admin job. And again, like, you've got to start somewhere. You don't need a huge amount. You've just got to build that evidence-based marketing around the problems you're trying to solve for the next person that's coming to you to fix, you know, to find that role. And you'll find very quickly, within 3 or 4 months, you've actually got enough to do that. So it isn't a huge job, but I don't want to understate the value of importance of the knock-on effect it has.
But it's also like going back, like an idea you could have is go, you know, download your LinkedIn data file, all your connections on there, and then one afternoon sit there with a highlighter and highlight everyone that you've had on interview, or everyone that you've placed, or everyone that you could send a message, say, hey, do you remember me? we work together. Would you please write me a recommendation? Would you do a testimonial? That leads on to the killer question, Julie, that you want me to come back to, which was obviously on candidate experience. A lot of this talk was about client acquisition and clients knowing who you are, but everyone moans at the moment, don't they, that candidates don't come back to you, they ghost you, and I think they have this perception of what recruiters are like. I think having evidence of how you treat candidates is almost more important than clients, really, because you want, every recruiter says we have the best candidates, don't they, on their website? We're a specialist, we have the best candidates. Well, how do you show that? So have you got any ideas about how a recruiter could get candidate references or candidate case studies or candidate experiences as these kind of documentation that they can share?
Well, for me, it absolutely should be part of your process. So I was very process driven in how all of our steps in recruitment were actually part of the process. The consultants couldn't skip them, so you had to complete and ask these questions. And by wanting to be better, you should always review what the candidate experience is. And when you're reviewing what the candidate experience is, and you can evidence that, and then you can pull that all together, you can either provide them and say, look, this is what we talked about. Would you say this is a fair assessment? And if they say, yeah, are you happy to give us a testimonial on that? Pull that together. But then the other thing is, we were speaking with a client last week, and actually she absolutely smashed outshone the evidence that I had. So 26% of my placements year on year, because we monitored this, came from referrals. So people referred people to us, and then we placed. This company said 60% of their placements came from candidates that were referred into them. So it's like, okay, why are your candidates referring other people? What are they saying about you? Getting that percentage, but then actually getting what they're saying about you in some form of written document or some kind of testimonial, because the candidate experience is the one that causes people to ghost the most. If they've had a poor experience, if they've had a poor experience with another agency, then they're going to judge you on that experience. You've got to evidence why you're different, and put that together in some kind of pack, even like when you register them. This is who you are, this is what you do, this is what we're going to do for you, and this is why we're different. So everybody that contacts you, we haven't worked for me, but just this is our candidate journey. If you work with us, this is how we're going to look after you. So sell to the candidates their journey as much as we do to the clients. And I think that's something where people fall down.
And I think
I've never seen that, Julie. I've never seen that on any website. The thing is, the thing that I call this is like a candidate charter. Mm-hmm. Almost like this is I was commenting on someone's LinkedIn thing when when you comment and then you get like 20,000 impressions on a comment. And I said, like, if people did this with their candidates early on, so I think someone was chipping away about being ghosted or a counter offer or something. And I was like, but if you had a statement, a document that verified how you work with candidates and you set the expectations really early, like this is how we work, and we won't work with you again if you break these, I don't know, commandments of work.
Yeah, it's like a little SLA. As such, I think like the knock-on effect, it then does relate back to client BD work, because if you're building this up and going, this is my candidate testimonials, and to your point, Andy, using your terminologies, we've got the best network. It's like, okay, well, actually, if you're going into a client, it's like, I placed Andy in. This is what he said about us. He's been there 3 years and he's now been promoted twice. Those are my sort of my network that we're dealing with. And here's the candidate referral. That helps really well from a BD point of view when you're talking to clients of the type of people that you get. And again, it helps, longevity. You're not paying, the money back on rebates after 12 weeks because they left and you didn't sell the job properly and it wasn't what you said and they didn't have the good candidate experience. So,
yeah. And that's a sales tool as well, isn't it? That is a sales tool. Because you can say to the client and the prospect, this is how we treat the candidate. Yeah. And if this is only going to be good for you because the experience the candidate has whilst coming through us interviewing for your job, the experience, the candidate experience of the feedback, the follow-up, and then you can also almost have the same SLAs with the client of all of this has to work together. We have to work as a team, no pun intended, but no, as a team together to make sure that everyone is treated fairly along the journey.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Andy, and one of the things we had was if we were recruiting people to come to work for us, we had, if you join Generate, this is what you can expect in your career. You do a similar thing for candidates, as you say, then take that out when you go and see your clients and show, this is what we give to our candidates. This is the journey that they're going to go on with us. And this is how we manage it. As you say, then tie it into, so how can then we match that? And that's why candidates come to us. You're just showing them that you've got that level of care that is over and above, I'm just going to submit a CV. And it also allows you to evidence your fees. So when you're going in, you're saying, our fees are 25%, they're going, well, everybody else is at 15%. Yeah, okay, but what are they doing for their money? How are they handling the process? How are they handling the candidates? How many people turn up for interview? How many don't accept? How many decline? How many counter offers do you have? Well, look, this is why we don't have that. So measure everything and bring it all together in any information that you can evidence on why you're different. You won't have to negotiate fees.
Yeah, interesting.
So we got 4 minutes to go. I don't think there's any more questions unless Bella is holding them back to drop in for the last second. We got a comment there from Tom just saying, here's a testimonial from me. Thank you for your time. This was a really useful meeting. I have to shoot to another meeting now, so they can do some deals.
Very welcome.
Just want to give everyone a heads up of the next LinkedIn Live that we've got, which is next Tuesday, the 21st, with Vanessa Raff. So Vanessa was our opening keynote, our conference. You would have seen her, Julie. She's got something like 250 people booked onto it already. So her session's all about called AI Help and Craft. So if anyone's interested in that, go to the team page, register for it like you did for this event, and you'll see Van next week with Kalpesh Baxi. It's the final, I think, in the AI Impact series of team that we've been running this year. Big thanks to you, Tom and Julie. Everyone that was on this session will get an email from us if you've given us permission to at some point in the next 24 hours with an overview, this 90-day guide, an overview of the session. And please do connect up with Julie and Tom here on LinkedIn. They both share really, really good stuff on their profiles. And have a great afternoon, everyone. And we'll all keep our fingers crossed for a successful game tonight at 8 o'clock as well. Thanks for watching.
You can all go to the pub now.
Yeah, if you're not already there.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.